Hello and welcome to another episode of Effing the Ineffable. I'm Lenny Milbus. I'm recording this on March 22nd, 2020. The reason I'm saying the date is because this is a time when we are faced with the first global pandemic of my lifetime, and I'm sure many of your lifetimes as well. And it's creating an interesting paradigm shift in behaviors of people. At this time, a lot of the world is on lockdown. People are required to stay in buildings, in their homes, and not go out into the world, since we don't know a whole lot about the virus, and it seems to be spreading more rapidly in areas where people are not secluded or isolated from one another. So I've been isolating in place. As for me, it's really not it's not very much of a stretch from my normal behavior as more of a monk lifestyle of doing my meditations and my learning and just pretty much spiritual work every day. Taking care of my body about the same as I did before, with some Tai Chi and different things I do to do that, keep my blood flowing, keep my cardiovascular system healthy, my muscular system healthy. So yeah, my life hasn't changed a whole lot. But one thing I've noticed, and this is kind of, to me, reflecting upon the tremendous opportunity this provides. I noticed, in the decades that I've been on a pretty dedicated spiritual regimen or path, a lot of people I've conversed with have expressed interest and, great curiosity about things. And when it comes to talking about the practical elements and the exercises that help one gain footing or make progress upon such a path, it comes down to a lot of pretty common excuse of I just don't have the time. I have to earn a living. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have this hobby, and a lot of people have a lot of reasons that they can't do things that they express a desire to do. Now, I'm not judging someone who doesn't want to do any spiritual work or anything I'm deeming a spiritual work, the yogas or studies and things like that. Like, if someone's just not interested, that's fine. That's their path, and everybody comes to the same destination by a different road. So, but the people who do express an interest, who have said that they do not have time, I'm kind of watching now. I've noticed some people getting deeper into their spiritual work, showing that they're expressions of a desire to do that were sincere, and I'm seeing others who are not, which is again fine. But if you want to, if you do want to make progress toward enlightenment, now's the time. No better time than now. That's always true in the most practical sense possible, being that all we have is now. But right now, everyone does have the time. It's very well supported and encouraged by all health officials that we should not be out doing other things unless we're essential to the survival of others. So, working in hospitals and things like that. So anyway, on that note, some of the things I'd noticed, and I want to call this episode, I would like the title to be something about salvation, because I want to touch upon the ideas of salvation and saviors and the apocalypse. Because I've seen a lot of people popping up now. A lot of spiritual advisors seem to be springing out of the sidewalks here, talking about their own prophetic visions or their pedigree, their favor by God, or what usually happens with the kind of the ego religious order. So that's springing up, and there seem to be a lot of people who are waiting for someone like that to come around and tell them how to how to get through this and how to live and how to do everything else. And I think this is a problem. I think it's indicative of an ailment we have in society. Our focus on the material, our focus on things that don't truly matter as distraction from the things that do matter, is what I see in these perspectives and events. For instance, a lot of people now are talking about how bored they feel. They're bored, uncomfortable, don't like the change, but mostly the boredom. And I think that's one that I just latched onto and decided I have to record, because I'm hearing that a lot. And boredom is what it is. And if we have an inherent feeling within us to evade or escape boredom, to cover up boredom, to fill boredom, really what can be said about that is, in that moment, that instinct is one to run from ourselves. Because that's what boredom is you're facing yourself. That's all you have in that moment, and you don't like it. You don't want to sit there with yourself. There's something that either you're afraid of, or you don't want to bother learning because of habit or something else. But if you want to make tremendous spiritual progress in Patanjali Yoga, the 8 limbs of yoga, one thing that's a huge moment for you. So if you're feeling this, if you're feeling bored and it's just driving you crazy and you can't handle it, that is what you need to work with. Like, I recommend that highly. Sit down, be bored, and examine boredom. Observe boredom. Learn what you can about the boredom. All of the feelings that go along with being bored. What is happening in my mind as I'm bored? What's happening in my body? Is my blood pressure up? Is my heart rate speeding up? Why do I feel I need to get out of this feeling right now? Because boredom really is just stillness. And for Patanjali Yoga, meditation, for learning the essence of our nature as self, boredom that's essential. We should become accustomed to, if not, maybe not even accustomed to, we should enjoy that. That silence should be something we seek and not something from which we seek to escape. So that's one thing. Sit and be bored. Just listen. Just listen, observe, and learn. Be open-minded. And it's kind of the same with, pain and all of the things. Those feelings, that feeling of running from boredom, is present in other things like, kinds of suffering. Like, I don't want to suffer through, whatever it is, which is understandable. I mean, but, all life truly is of pleasure and pain. You get both. That's just part of the deal. And to try to control it so that it's all pleasure it's a waste of time, and it's going to end in tremendous disappointment. So learning to take what comes is part of that can be mastered through a time of boredom, learning to deal with those feelings and to experience boredom in a way that is comfortable. Okay, so those feelings of trying to escape something seem to be present in the type of person who feels that way, such that they're always looking for a way out, always looking for an escape that isn't through the subject. And this comes to the whole salvation thing. the ideas of religions, of there being a savior, that you can get yourself in all the trouble you want, and a Messiah is going to come down in a helicopter, with a rope, a little, they call those dinghy or something, and pull you out of all your trouble. So you don't need to worry about it. You don't need to be thinking about yourself or trying to make yourself a better person, because the Savior is going to come and get you, and it's all good. And of course, many people who listen to this podcast, I'm sure, see the problem with this, but many people on our planet do not. They are waiting for a Savior, and perhaps not taking on the responsibility of interpreting the spiritual and religious texts as the Messiah figure in those texts actually teaching very good systems about making you your own savior. Instead of reading it as this person is coming for me, this person has power, they can help me. I think that it's missed on some people. I'm not sure, to what degree, but that they don't see that as a potential for themselves. And that misses, in my opinion, the entire point of any spiritual text that's ever been written. If you're reading it as this other person, and none of this exists for me, this can't possibly help me become more like that person, I think that you're missing the point of the religion. I'm waiting for these saviors, waiting for this miraculous, boat to come down from the clouds, or I don't know what, I don't subscribe to any of those ideologies, so I don't know the details of those, but that leads to an insanity. It's where apocalyptic visions and apocalyptic dreams come from. The people that are the most fundamental in their belief in saviors and things like that are also the ones praying for the death of the whole world, because then their apocalyptic stories come true, and then their savior will descend from the clouds, and they will have been pushing for it and will be rewarded by those people. So these kind of things, these hoping that someone else will do the work for us so we don't have to, is at the root of a lot of problems. And it's always time, whether now in a time like this, or in the future when we're through this pandemic and everyone's trying to return to a normal life, it is always time to do our own work, to become our highest potential. And our highest potential is the highest thing we can think of. If you can think of, a Jesus Christ being, a person with infinite compassion, someone who can heal others just by their presence, and all of these things. If you subscribe to that existing, then you must also subscribe to that being a potentiality for you. You can become that. And from all of the Christian texts, well, maybe not all, but the ones that I've studied, like Matthew and so on, it seems that the Jesus of that Bible was telling you the very same thing. Same thing, it's obvious within the Vedas. Those are obviously guiding you to becoming your own, realizing your own potentiality. Same with the Buddhist teachings, and on and on. Obviously Taoism. So yeah, take this time to, if I know you're sick, you're probably really tired of getting any advice right now. Everybody's become, a neighborhood savior. But definitely, if you're inclined to advance upon a spiritual path to improve your understanding of self, which really is the essence of salvation, enlightenment. When you know yourself and you know your true nature, there aren't problems in the same way that there were before. At least they're not viewed in the same way, and they don't have the same weight. Be bored, be whatever you are. Let it come, examine it, observe it, deal with it in an efficient way, and in a way that's not running from one thing to the next in order to escape. Don't run from it, engage it. This isn't saying engage the virus, of course, that would be ridiculous. Like I said, I'm holed up in a small room. Fortunately, I have a little room here for the time being, and every time I go out, I'm washing my hair, washing my clothes, washing my hands, only breathing through my nose in public, staying away from people. So I'm taking precautions because I don't want to get this illness. But if I did get the illness, I would be like, okay, here it is. Now what? Now how do I get through this? Instead of trying to make it not exist, I would try to alleviate symptoms and get through it the best way I could. That's not a great analogy, but I just wanted to point out that taking what comes as your karma and accepting it without preferences can be a little sticky. But in a case of, a pandemic, a virus, of course you're going to try to avoid death while you're experiencing the role of the body-mind. I'm charged with my karma is being charged with the well-being of this body-mind when I'm awake. So I do that, but I also don't run from that responsibility, I guess is the point. So anyway, as always, I appreciate you listening. Again, I just wanted to say, be your own savior, and anybody who's trying to sell you that they are your savior is probably far worse off than you are. Again, the people listening to this are probably already on board with these ideas, but it's worth saying nonetheless. I appreciate you listening, and I hope to have another reason to speak with you again very soon. And take care out there. Enjoy your boredom.